Today's March the 31st, and today's a special day for a lot of people. It's also a special day for me, and then it's also not a special day. Matter of fact, we'll get into some of that in a second. The reason it's a special day for me is because I only go to Dunkin' Donuts once a year. I remember I used to go all the time. I have a Dunkin' Donuts at the end of my street. I used to go all the time like an idiot. And then one day it went from $1.95 to like $2.10. And then it jumped to like $2.20 for this. And I said, that's it. I'm not paying no $2, okay? And I quit. And it's gone up 1 year, and it's been 3 years now. Now it's $3. And what's interesting, I got a bunch of kids, and they like, I want to, hey, come over, let's have coffee. And the other day we were coming back. I picked some family members up from the train. They went to Chicago, and one of the millennial kids, family members, wanted a special coffee. I'm like, wait, we're going home. No, we had to get off the freeway and go to the other place, okay? And I think her coffee was $6. I'm just like, for $6, you could buy a whole thing of coffee for a whole week. But now they want this coffee at $6. Anyway, so yes, I went first day of the year. I go once a year to Dunkin's. Otherwise, I don't waste my money on this. I'm not paying nobody $3 for coffee. All right, so today's Easter, and somebody sent me something this morning, and I don't watch the news, right? I don't watch TV or anything like that. I do watch some Netflix stuff, but sent me this thing about the Biden administration. Matter of fact, I couldn't even read it. But apparently to transvestite or trans identification day, or I can't remember the word, the proclamation of trans identity. I don't even, you know what? I'm not even going to give it the time of day right now. I'll read it another time. But they sent it to me, and I didn't have the glasses on, but I just saw that. So I double-checked it, and yes, they decided to make Easter a transgender identification day. I can't make this stuff up. I mean, there's 365 days of the year, and why would you do that? So, I call my buddy, I go, why are you giving me this fake news? And he goes, dude, man, this is real. I go, they just did it. I'm like, why would a presidential candidate put that out there? He goes, Marco, it's war against the Christians, man. It's war against the Christians. You know what? And that's why we're going to do this video today. It's going to be called the Not News, and we're going to talk about the accident that I started doing the other day on a YouTube video, and something went wrong with my feed. It just kind of went away, and I got into it talking about the ship that hit the bridge and how, like, all these people are going like, oh, like, this is the stuff that's out there. And I hear this from my friends, because, I go on Facebook. That's how I get a lot of my news. I hate to say it's not a great place, but if it makes it to Facebook, it's out there everywhere else too, right? And I don't read it all. I just get blimps. So it's the far right are saying, oh, there's babies in cages. The whole, and I'm not saying that's a problem. I mean, it does happen. And that's not what we're going to get into. They were on the ship, and then another one is like, they did it because, about the economy and diesel fuel and all that stuff is great. And also, they did it, well, it's a deflection from that, who's that rock, these rappers now. It's coming out that these rappers, they kind of go both ways in a way. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but this guy named Diddy, they aren't like the normal alpha males. They pretend to be alpha males, but man, you ain't an alpha male if you're like, and you want to say it, I'll get in trouble, I'll get dropped. Plus, something about selling children, and it gets in. Well, we're not going there, okay? And it's none of that. Sure, that's what's going to be out there, and then you got the new ones coming out saying, oh, they have all these different safety measures on these ships, so that can't happen. And then there's a new one out there now. They're like, oh, they got the black box and they lost 2 minutes of the black box. Gee, I wonder why. All right, the real reason for the crash. First of all, every day they do things, okay? And sometimes they're accidents, sometimes they're not. Sometimes, they don't do them. They do things for a lot of reasons. They never, they never waste a crisis, all right? And so first of all, they're not trying to kill you and me for population control. Yeah, they're trying to get us in one area so they can control us, that's for sure, okay? And they don't really care about us. They really don't. And so it's not, people think it's personal. It's not. It's this big agenda. And another thing, these people belong to all these societies, okay? And we're not going there in this video. And they're all puppets, and they're all compartmentalized as well, okay? So half those people that believe in one thing, like, let's just say, well, you got the open society. I don't know why my phone's, try this. The open society, which is all NGOs funded by very rich people. And what are they all? They make all the rules and laws. They're the ones, there's 600 NGOs. And they're the ones that decide who gets money on the storefronts and who gets a bike path in the front. And you don't get to vote on this stuff, okay? These NGOs are running the world, not your votes, okay? Believe me, your votes are illusion. And so, the real reason for this, you got to open Pandora's box here and go in. Why would they knock down a bridge? And by the way, in my other video, I calculated out that the possibility of that happening was like winning the lottery 3 times. That was the possibility of that ship. It was 6 million minutes old from the day they built it, and to hit that and steer it into it and thrust the throttles and whatever and be underneath the biggest bridge and the only 2 count. It was like winning the lottery 3 times in a row. So none of us have won the lottery once, not alone 3 times. So you got to understand, not an accident. Okay. Now, back in 1968, I'm going to go back 60 years. Okay. The Club of Rome. What do they do to Club of Rome? Way too many people. 1972 Earth Summit. What's wrong? Oh, fossil fuels. We got the e-paid air scrubbers, and everybody leaves. All our industry leaves. 1982. And every 10 years they had this Earth Summit. Well, then they started talking about, about species, and everyone talks about the panda bear and the zebra and the white, and there's nothing wrong with this, okay? The songbirds in New Zealand are extinct, they're going extinct. Well, you got to go back and look at history and what's going on. And well, there's this thing today, and we'll go back and forth on it, but I'll give you an example how a great example where they come up with this kind of thinking. New Zealand had no humans on it, okay? And all of a sudden in the 1800s, whatever, a ship shows up and a couple rats jump off the ship, and then they start eating eggs of these birds. And before you know it, there's like 5 species of birds that the rats have eaten their eggs, and they're extinct or almost extinct. So then they realize, then they bring the sheep to the land and more land, and basically they have to move these birds to the other islands, and no humans allowed. We'll call these cores. Just remember that word: core, corridor, and buffer zone. Just remember those things, because I'm going to get back to this bridge thing, how this all comes together. And so, so they put these birds on there. They came back to life. They're like, oh my God, no wonder we put people in the wilderness, and it destroyed the wilderness. So that's a core. Okay, you can't have people in wilderness together. All right, now let's move on to another example. We're going to talk about a corridor. This is going back, man. We're going back 30, 40 years. And then we'll get to the Wildlands Project and Rewilding of America, Bill Clinton, and what's really going on and why they would cause this bridge damage in the city, all right? It's going to be about divide in a minute, okay, and taking away your land. It'll get pretty crazy. So then what happens, another example, and then let's talk about corridor. So we're here in China, all right, or in India, and there's elephants, and they decide the elements are like no man's kind, and they walk and roam, they don't have enough water, they need food, so they're going to walk hundreds, thousand miles, So they decided to leave this area, and they had to trample through to a new area of food. Well, they had like 50,000 drones following them, and they're going through towns and destroying roads, and then some elephants had, felt bad, so they went off on their own, and they died because they were lonely, and then they got into the elephants, and the bottom line was the elephants had to have a place to travel from one core to another core, and that would be called a corridor. And guess what? no humans in corridors either. This is what's going on. So we got corridors, and then we have what's called buffer zones around these. Well, anyways, now that I told you this, they've been doing corridors, buffer zones, and high population zones in Australia, in New Zealand, in England, in Africa, all over Africa. All that money, we give all those countries money. Why do we give them the millions of dollars? It's for this stuff. It's for these NGOs. You guys think, sure, we help some wars and some fights and build some guerrillas, and, our CIA takes out, some leaders so we can put our own guy in, like the Ukraine. And so in South America and in America. Let's go to America. So in 1992, in Rio de Janeiro, they had we had the Earth Summit, and they spent 5 years before that to come up with the plan. So like 90 countries show up, including us, and we get our ass kicked in there because we're like the biggest carbon dioxide producers there is. Okay, they got to remember, they've already got into this whole population thing. In 1968, they had, there's too many people on this planet. That was the Club of Rome meeting, okay? By the way, I'm writing a book called Skewed Perceptions, and that's where I'm starting 60 years back on the Club of Rome. So that's why I know a little bit about this stuff. And so what was the problem there, though? All the babies came back from World War II. They all had kids, too many people. The planet's going to be overwhelmed. What happens 4 years later? Roe versus Wade. A couple years later, the one-child policy in China. And then it kind of, since then, they've aborted, 1 billion kids, okay? And now we've had, COVID, and now our population rate's decreasing logarithmically in many of our, in the high carbon-producing areas, people like you and me that have commercialism. We produce a lot more carbon to drive fancy cars. We go on vacations and shit like that. And so I'm kind of getting off here. So let's get back. So Bill Clinton signs up, and then in 1993, what does he do? He goes, let's take our parks back. So he introduces, starts finding, wolves and bears out of zoos, whatever, and introduces them back to the wild because he puts them in the core areas. And what was interesting is, you remember those times where we didn't have enough money for our parks? Remember they shut down all the parks? Man, you think that was anything to do with money? That's the whole bullshit thing about we don't have money to fund this and that. They just print it. They just print the money. I mean, they print trillions of dollars for COVID. They just print it. The money's coming out of your bank account, man. If you had 100 grand 2-3 years ago, ain't no 100 grand now after COVID. Your 100 grand in the bank's really like 70 grand. So you better think about that, because they're going to keep printing money. It's going to be less and less and less and less. As long as you can buy a hot dog at the stadium for a couple bucks. Well, I don't know about buying a hot dog for a couple bucks, but off a hot dog guy, you don't see what's happening, because they're not going to tell you. So Bill Clinton puts these animals in there. They shut down everything, do a little test. When the power grid went down, it was a test. It's always a test. When the airplane, and so then he formed all these new coalitions and all these nonprofits to help feed these core zones. And what they're doing now, they're not fixing roads, okay? They're not fixing roads. They took down dams on these rivers because they thought maybe the salmon might come back. Are the salmon going to come back? No, but we're going to take down those dams anyways. And those dams were powered to these little small towns. And now these little small towns don't have power. They don't have roads because they're not fixing the roads. We don't have money for the roads. Remember all that? All the administrations. We're like, we got to fix our bridges and roads. They're not going to fix them. It's part of the Wildlands Project. Even when Obama pretended he was going to fix them, they didn't pass all that. So they shut all that down. So these poor little people in these towns can't bring their crop, to market. And it's even better than that. Then the Bureau of Land Management shows up, and that's all part of this Wildlands Project. The Wildlands Project with Wilding America. Like I said, they're doing this all over the world. We're just a little bit behind. They've been doing this all over. Okay, and you're not going to read about it because you're too busy. What's today's news? Diddy, or I don't know. The flying saucers are coming. Oh, the ellipse. Oh God, is that another Y2K? Give me a break. Any of you people that spent $500 to watch that thing, you're an idiot. Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to do that, because I'm making some money on my Airbnbs on these sites, because they're coming right across our area. But anyways, so back to Clinton. So he's funding all these, and you remember he kicked out all the loggers, and the reason he kicked out the loggers because they were cutting down the trees and the cores need to get bigger. Okay, then what happens down in the Everglades? they start kicking people off their land, and the Bureau of Land Management, man, these are bad people. They monitor your wells. You can't drill wells. You can't pump water out of your wells, and you can't even, certain states in America, you can't even take water off your gutters to feed your to water your vegetable gardens. Dude, this is serious stuff. And so they're going to these towns and they're saying you can't use your land for this. And you have 1,000 acres, you want to build a house? No, you ain't building a house here. Okay, well, I need to live, you got to fight. It takes you 10 years to fight. And you end up giving them like 40% of your land so you could build a house. Oh, I want to change my crop from, I want to grow alfalfa instead of corn. No. You can only grow corn on your land. So I'm not going to get into that because there's a lot going on with this land management. And there was a woman, Rosa Corey, who was really going around the country since 1992 talking about Agenda 21 and how this is like at warp speed. And she talked about ECLI, and ECLI is like smart cities, 15-minute cities. This, man, you can read this stuff. They're not making this stuff up, man. You can buy this stuff off the United Nations Library, very expensive books. And by the way, I got the Agenda 21 book, the one from Regional de Janeiro, and I just, for shits and giggles, give it to my friends. Hey, just pick a page and read it. After 3 sentences, they can't read it. It's that bad. It's written at a point where nobody reads it. I don't even think your land planners that go to college to city planners read that shit. People like, they're just headline people. This whole world is headlines. And so he gives them money. Obama has all these programs as well where they're taking land away from people. And these towns are going ghost. All right, now let's get back to that bridge. I know I got off here. That bridge I got hit. Why would you knock a bridge down? Well, A, you want to cause trauma, okay? And what does trauma do? 9/11, JF. Trauma basically disassociates people's minds, and at that point, you can program with repetitive programming and change people's minds and beliefs and make no's yes, yes, no's. It's all psychological stuff. They did this right after World War II. The Russians did it. The Germans did it. It's called mind control. The CIA did it. Project Paperclip and MK Ultra. All that is real stuff. You can read books. There's books on this stuff. So you want to create the trauma. Then what you want to do after that, you want to create all the, you want to like put out fake stuff to screw up with this conspiracy people. Because, conspiracy people believe one thing and it might be the truth. They call them conspiracy people. By the way, they made that word up. They changed it. Conspiracy was never what it is today. Conspiracy was two people going against another person to hurt them. Okay? Now it's just like truth is conspiracy. Okay? Because people don't want you to know the truth. And so all this is going on, but what does it really do? The bottom line is they're going to tell you it's going to cost $600 million to fix this bridge. It's in the core. It's not in a core. It's not in a corridor, and it's not a buffer zone. It's in a high population zone. You see, this wildlands project is designed to move people to high population zones, which is going to be only 20% of the land on this planet. The other 80% goes back to the animals and no more humans. This sounds crazy. This sounds far-fetched. It's not. This is real. This is happening. And if you were just to look some of the stuff up and it's a big puzzle. Imagine a 100,000-piece puzzle. It's the blue sky, and you're just working on the perimeter. You're never going to get the center done because it's that complicated. Okay, this is complicated stuff, and it's got a lot of octopus parts to it, and you and me will never put it all together. But we can at least see the end game and what's happening. And so they're moving people. Now, what do? So then you create this. We're the taxpayers. We're not fixing that bridge. That guy, it's his fault. He should fix it. He hit the bridge. That company, Lords of London, should pay for it. Well, that's the plan, to get you and you pissed about the money. We ain't fixing that. Well, guess what's really happening? They cause trauma. They're going to repeat this over and over, and before you know it, you're going to start saying, we're not fixing bridges. As long as they're not in the high population zones, because the people in the population zones, according to ECLI and according to all these NGOs, they're the ones that get the vote for the people's sake. Like, let's say you own some land, you own a beach on Lake Erie, and they want to take that beach away from you and say, okay, you don't own it anymore. You only own to the high water mark, not the low water mark. They're not going to take the people on the beach to vote on this. They're going to go out to Fremont, out in the country somewhere where people don't have beaches, that want to go to a beach, can't afford a beach, and say, you guys get to vote on it. They vote on it, they take the beach away. This is how this all works, okay? And it's not, there's nothing fair about it. And so now they're not going to want to fix the bridges. And why aren't they going to want to fix the bridges? And you and me are going to say, no, we ain't paying for that. They're not going to know really why. So these little towns go ghost. And when these towns go ghost, they're going to move to the cities. And they're little 3-story stacking packs without elevators. We only got one road to our streets now because they took the other one out because we don't need it. You know, we're going to be sharing electric cars pretty soon. We're going to be counting our carbon credits. That's all coming. Okay? You guys think I'm making this up? No, I'm not making this up. You could read this, go back in history, and you could just look at one thing and see how it was an idea at one of the Earth summits and see where it came to today in 224. It'll blow your mind. And it's not just, it's like this, the new divide today is the rural against the city. They want us to hate the people out in the country. Well, with all the people out in the country now, what? They all are Trumpers, they got flags, they are KKKs, whatever, okay, whatever. But this is the new divide. They killed the guy. The masculine alpha male is now toxic. Any alpha male that has any individualism or any critical thinking, you know, and it doesn't, and questions the mainstream is toxic. And guess what? All these kids, these little millennials and generations, these are running around toxic masculinity because they're and they made them all go to college. You notice that? When I went to college, only 20% of us went to college. They all go to college. And you could be as stupid as a box of rocks. You're going to graduate in 4 years. Back when I went to college, man, only some of us graduated. You know why they want you in college? They want to take your parents' money. They want to take the parents' money. They want to put these kids in debt. They're going to give them a little $100,000 a year jobs, but at the same time, they're going to indoctrinate them. They're going to turn them into, I don't eat meat. The poor, oh God, look what they did to that little lamb, you know, and oh God, he lies, he rapes women. And these kids are so indoctrinated. And I'll never forget, about 15 years ago, MSNBC, this chick named Melissa Perry goes on TV and goes, you don't own your children. The community owns the children. Well, they do own your children. Our children have been hijacked by the community. That's why, you know, they're waving it. And there's nothing wrong with saving animals and having cores and corridors. And there's nothing wrong with not eating meat. Really. And at one time in my life, I thought it was a problem, but it's not. There's nothing wrong with any of that. And so this whole bridge collapse was for, and by the way, these events happen every day, all over the world, simultaneously, and we could have one happening right now somewhere else, and they're all planned because they have to build up on each other. Remember the 100,000-piece puzzle? We're never going to see half these. We're never going to put it together. As a matter of fact, if you took the smartest 50 people and took all their brains and put it together to one big brain, it still wouldn't be smart enough to figure out how they're doing all this and the way they do it. And right now, the way you do it is you split, divide, break up. And when you do that, you have little groups. And little groups just can't get together to do anything. And so this is another divide, and it's just a little piece of the puzzle. And now we're going to make the people divided, the country people and the city people, because they don't want the people living in the country, because that's in the core zones. You know, they're trying to make the core zones bigger for the animals. And I got a bunch of videos, a lot more detailed on exact ways they do this. And I have videos on I'm going to do one on the Bureau of Land Management. Oh my God. If you guys only knew what these people are doing out in the country, what they're doing. If you live out in the country and you raise chickens and you want to sell chicken eggs, you're going to have to barcode your chicken eggs real soon. You want to sell a piece of a tomato, it's going to have a barcode on it. And you're going to have to say where it grew, how it grew, what you feed it, how'd you move it, what kind of fuel did you use to move it. This is where this is all going. And so, anyways, Easter today, the 31st, happy Easter. And I guess for part of the population, it's not Easter, it's Happy Tranny Day. Or Tranny Identification Day. Look it up. Hey, thanks for coming on.